Week 13 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few defense DST units. I have as sleepers this week. The first one, the New York Giants. So the Giants, their defense in terms of fantasy football, they don't put up a lot of points, but in real life, they're pretty stingy defense that's going to make teams work for it and try to use the length of the field. So the last few weeks here for the Giants, the Week 10 versus Houston, 16 points allowed, 4 sacks and into a fumble recovery. Week 11 versus Detroit, they got the doors blown off, 31 points allowed. In Week 12 at Dallas, they at least fought a little bit in that one, 28 points allowed and 2 interceptions. And right here, Week 13, a decent matchup in MetLife Stadium versus the Commanders that give up the 12th most fantasy points to defenses on the season. I think they can make the day a little bit rough here for Taylor Heineke. Is this Giant defense? Maybe get a few sacks, maybe a turnover or two, and they're available right now in 84% of fantasy leagues. The next DSTs, the New Orleans Saints. So the Saints here, they've just owned Tom Brady since he's been on this Tampa Bay Buc team for the most part. Well, at least made it tough for him. So the last few weeks here, this defense, they haven't been totally horrible, but also they haven't been putting up monster points. Week 10 at Pittsburgh, 20 points allowed, 6 sacks. Week 11 versus the Los Angeles Rams, 20 points allowed, 4 sacks. And Week 12 at San Francisco, 13 points allowed and a sack. So right here, I think they could hold Brady down to mid-20s, low 20s in this one. I think they could get to him a few times. I know Tampa Bay gives up the third least amount of fantasy points to DSTs on the season. But like I said, this same team for the most part has had Brady's number since he joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a few seasons ago. And going back to Week 2 versus Tampa, 14 points allowed, only a sack and a fumble recovery. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if we see a similar performance like that from the Saints. And right now, they're available. You could use them this week here in 67% of fantasy leagues. And the third and final defense DST unit I have as a sleeper this week here is the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons here, middle of the pack defense. But this week here, a mediocre matchup versus a Pittsburgh Steelers team. Now, we know their offensive line isn't great. We know Kenny Pickett's still a young quarterback that's prone to mistakes. And we also know this Falcon team at home plays better than they do on the road. And Najee Harris might be out of this game as well. So the last few weeks here for the Falcons, DST. Week 10 at Carolina, 25 points allowed, a sack. Week 11 versus the Bears, 24 points allowed, 4 sacks, and then throwing a return touchdown by Cordell Patterson. And Week 12 at Washington, 19 points allowed, and an interception. So right here, the Steelers do give up the 13th most points to defenses on the season. And I could see this ball game be an offensive struggle for both teams here, where the defenses are going to make a few plays on both sides. So right now, I think Atlanta can make a few plays. Still available, though, in tons of fantasy leagues. This is Atlanta Falcon team. If you're really desperate in the deepest of leagues, they're out there in 92%. So that's a few defense DST units I have as sleepers for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.